Alright guys, today I wanted to make a video about my England squad for the World Cup. Now, Gareth Southgate obviously released his England squad last week, I think it was Thursday, 26 men, and I am going to give you a clue now. I make 6 changes and I'm going to explain why. So I think overall Gareth Southgate's squad, I quite like it. He's made some good choices, I think. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers. I think this is fairly simple. There are 3 standout English goalkeepers in the Premier League right now. I think there are a couple of others who deserve a mention. Dean Henderson, I think, is in very good form for Nottingham Forest. I say a couple of others. There's not many English goalkeepers in the Premier League, but Dean Henderson's definitely one which I think you could definitely make a case for possibly deserves a shout at maybe being in the squad. I think Sam Johnston's another player who has been in and around the squad in previous years, but the lack of game time that he's had at Crystal Palace sort of harms his chances, I think. But yeah, 3 goalkeepers: Jordan Pickford, Nick Pope and Aaron Ramsdale. That would be my order in terms of who do I choose in, like, what's... If there's an injury, basically, who's back up to who sort of thing. Jordan Pickford's my first choice. And then the 2 right backs I've picked are Kieran Trippier and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Southgate has done exactly the same. I agree with him on that. And then I've gone with 4 centre-backs. Now, I've gone with John Stones, Conor Cody, Fikayo Tomori and Chris Smalling. This is where me and Gareth Southgate differ. He's gone very Premier League, and he's gone with 5 centre-backs, in fact, actually. He has picked John Stones, Ben White, Harry Maguire, Eric Dyer and Conor Cody. Now, my reasoning for not picking Maguire and Eric Dyer is because Eric Dyer, I think's been very good recently, but he has been playing in a 3 at the back in the centre of it. And when he gets played in a 4 at the back on like the right side of the centre backs, I think he can get found out, and in my team I would be playing a 4-3-3 formation, so that would not be suited to Eric Dyer at all. And the reason I haven't picked Harry Maguire is because I understand why Southgate's picked him based on his performances at previous tournaments, but I want players in my squad who are, you know, in form and are playing a lot of minutes, which is something you can't really say about Harry Maguire recently, as he's probably United's 4th choice centre-back now behind Rafael Varane, Lisandro Martinez and Victor Lindelof. So yeah, I've not picked Harry Maguire. And I know what I'm gonna get to the obvious thing you're probably thinking about right now, the obvious person I've left out in a minute. Left back, well actually I'll just touch on my centre-backs a little bit. I've picked John Stones and Conor Cody, same as Southgate, 2 solid centre-backs. John Stones, first choice centre-back really, isn't he? And Conor Cody is, yeah, he's performing really well for Everton in a 4 at the back system, which is something I haven't really seen him do before. So yeah, I keep him in my squad. I've picked Fikayo Tomori. I think he has to go ahead of Maguire, Dyer, and it's just mad how he hasn't been picked, in my opinion, considering how well he's played for AC Milan. And Chris Smalling I've picked because he's someone who never even gets a mention for how good he plays at Rome. He's one of their best players, and Rome are fairly high up in Serie A, so for me, I'd have him on the plane. Left backs, I've gone with 2 left backs. Gareth Southgate's only really got 1 recognised left back, and he has gone with Luke Shaw. I've gone with Luke Shaw and Rico Henry, because Rico Henry is someone who I think goes very much under the radar. I think there's been a lot of people saying, like, questioning who should be Luke Shaw's backup now that Ben Chilwell's injured. And by the way, if Ben Chilwell was fit, I think Southgate would pick him, and I would pick him as well. Now, people have been saying Ryan Sessegnon, Dan Burn, Tyrick Mitchell. For me, I've gone with Rico Henry because I don't think he gets anywhere near the credit he deserves for how well he consistently plays for Brentford. He's been in their top 5 players since the start of last season for me at Brentford, and produced a really good performance against Manchester City at the weekend. So yeah, I'd have him in my squad. Now, what I've done is I've basically picked out 3 players in Southgate's squad that are going to be sort of used as utility players, players who can fill in at multiple positions, might not be in the starting 11. And I've picked 3 of my own as well. So my utility defender, if that makes sense, is Ben White. Now that answers that question of where on earth is he, and I think Gareth Southgate's is probably going to be Kyle Walker because he can play right wing back, right back and centre back as well. Ben White, similar, can play right back and centre back in my team. So yeah, that's where I've put Ben White into my team before anyone gets annoyed at that. Defensive midfielders, I've gone with Declan Rice, so Southgate's picked Calvin Phillips though. I've not got Calvin Phillips in my squad due to, again, lack of game time. I don't think he would have had that many minutes even if he was fit because of how good Rodri is. But yeah, I've gone with Jordan Henderson as sort of my backup defensive midfielder. Southgate's still got him in the squad in central midfield, but I plan on using him as in more of a defensive role in this England team. And then central midfielders, I've got 4, Southgate's got 4 as well. Jude Bellingham, Mason Mount, both nailed on. And I've got Jack Grealish and Harvey Elliott as my 2. Now Jack Grealish is in Southgate's squad, but I've got him down as Southgate's utility player in midfield and / attack. I've picked Harvey Elliott because I think he's been one of Liverpool's better players this year, and I just think England right now they haven't got many really good like box to box, or not box to box, but like midfielders, just like who are there for being good in possession sort of thing. And I think Harvey Elliott is that. That there are other options such as what Southgate's gone for. He's gone for Conor Gallagher. I just think Harvey Elliott's been performing better than Conor Gallagher recently, in all honesty. So that's why I've picked him. There are a few others. I've picked James Ward-Prowse as my utility midfielder. He's been left out by Southgate. I think that's quite harsh because I don't think Ward-Prowse has been that bad this season. I think he's been decent, but I think he's also suffered from playing in one of the worst teams in the league right now in Southampton, unfortunately. So I don't think he should be marked down because of that. So I've kept him in my squad. Then we'll move on to forward players. So Southgate, I've picked Grealish as Southgate's utility player, if that makes sense. This is getting a bit complicated, isn't it? As my 2 right wingers, I've gone with the same as Southgate. I've gone with Bukayo Saka and James Maddison. Maddison, I'd imagine in my team is going to play as a right winger, if that makes sense. He doesn't really stay out on the wing, but he comes inside. But that's sort of where he plays for Leicester. You have Daka or Vardy down the middle, Barnes on the left and Maddison on the right, but he comes quite central, allowing Castagna to get forward, which in my team would allow Kieran Trippier to get forward. So yeah, strikers, I've gone with Kane and Ivan Toney. Southgate's gone with Kane and Callum Wilson. I just think Ivan Toney has been playing really well in a not so good side at Brentford compared to Wilson at Newcastle. I think with Toney as well, you also have the fact that his injury record is a lot better. Like Callum Wilson, fantastic player, don't get me wrong, and if I was to pick a 3rd striker to go in this team, it would be him. But I think you want to be 100% sure that your players are going to stay fit throughout this tournament. And also, I think Ivan Toney gives you something a little bit different. You can be a bit more direct with him, and yeah, I just have him personally. On the left wing, I've gone with Southgate. Actually, I'll go Southgate first. He's gone with Sterling and Foden. I've gone. This doesn't really matter. I've picked Sterling and Rashford. Southgate's picked Sterling and Foden. Foden's my utility player, if that makes sense. Rashford is Southgate. So there's not too much of a difference. So I think that was fairly straightforward, to be honest. So the main differences are I've picked Fikayo Tomori instead of Maguire. I've picked Chris Smalling instead of Eric Dyer. I've also picked Rico Henry, which is a left back, which it doesn't really replace anyone in Southgate's team. It probably replaces Kyle Walker, if anyone, because The reason I haven't picked Kyle Walker, that's something that I haven't addressed, is purely down to the fact that he has had such little game time recently. And is it, like, I don't know, he hasn't even played for City since he got injured. And I'm not even sure he is fully fit at the moment. So, yeah, for me, I wouldn't have him personally, but I can understand why Southgate would. Yeah, so Rico Henry places Kyle Walker in that regard. And also, I think we're a bit light on left backs, because as soon as Luke Shaw goes, you either have the option of playing Bukayo Saka out there in like a three at the back system, Kieran Trippier there, and then he's struggling really. So I think we need another left back. I picked Harvey Elliott instead of Conor Gallagher. I think Elliott's been better. I picked James Ward-Prowse instead of Calvin Phillips. Phillips hasn't played recently, Ward-Prowse has, and Ward-Prowse has been alright in my opinion. And I've picked Ivan Toney instead of Callum Wilson. That's sort of a close decision, depends on what you prefer. So for me, I think Gareth Southgate hasn't been too bad with his selection. I think he's done a decent job. He's picked most of the players I'd want in that team. Like, if we look at the players I've swapped in and swapped out, I think the only one which I would say is one which is an outrageous call is not picking Fikayo Tomori personally, purely. Like the players I've taken out of Southgate's team are if you look at some of them, Harry Maguire, Calvin Phillips, Kyle Walker. That's all because they haven't played recently or haven't been in good form. So yeah, that's half of the picks that I've replaced because I want players in form. So yeah. Anyway, I really want England to win the World Cup. I'd love it if they do. It's going to be hard. It's probably unlikely they'll win it, but it would be amazing. I'm going to be making lots of videos on the World Cup, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's my England team. If I'm having to pick a starting 11 right now off the top of my head, I'll go Jordan Pickford in goal, Kieran Trippier at right back. I'm just looking at the list that I've made of my squad in Southgate's, well, my list at the moment. Centre backs, I'll go John Stones. Oh, this is tough. Because John Stones and Ben White both play on the right side, so who would I pick out of the two? I'd go John Stones and Fikayo Tomori. And left back, Luke Shaw, I think that's a fairly easy decision. I know Luke Shaw hasn't, over the past 12 months, hasn't been in the greatest form ever. But I still think recently he's pulled it back a bit. I think over the past couple of months, since Malacia replaced him in the United starting 11 at the start of the season, that sort of gave him the kick up the bum that he needed a little bit to improve his performances. Then I'll go Declan Rice, Bellingham and Mason Mount in midfield. I think that's a well-balanced midfield. You get perfect amount of, you get the box-to-box in Jude Bellingham, you get the creativity in Mason Mount, and you get, you know, the defensive midfield in Rice, which protects the defence and also is good at bringing the ball forward. And then I'll go front three, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, and this is probably the toughest decision Southgate probably has to make, I think, out of who does he start on the left. You've got three very good options in, well, four potentially if he goes, adds Grealish in that position. Sterling or Rashford or Foden? See, I'm more so going for Sterling or Rashford. I'm thinking I want someone who's got more pace and is good. I want someone who's cutting inside rather than what Foden has. I think Foden might come a bit too central, so I'll go with Raheem Sterling purely because I think in an England shirt he's brilliant, and also the fact that at Chelsea recently, I think part of his average form at Chelsea is down to the fact that he's been played out of position quite a lot this season. So I'll go with Raheem Sterling on the left. But anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.